Hello, welcome to reading Granddaddy's Bible. We're going to read Genesis chapters 16, 17, and 18. This is for Friday, January 5th. Genesis chapter 16. Abram marrieth Agar, who bringeth forth Ismael. Now Sarai, the wife of Abraham, had brought forth no children, but having a handmaid, an Egyptian named Agar, she said to her husband, Behold, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. Go into my handmaid. It may be I may have children of her at least. And when he agreed to her request, she took Agar the Egyptian her handmaid, 10 years after they first dwelt in the land of Canaan, and gave her to husband her husband to wife. And he went into her. But she, perceiving that she was with child, despised her mistress. And Sarai said to Abram, Thou dost unjustly with me. I gave my handmaid into thy bosom, and she, perceiving herself to be with child, despiseth me. The Lord judge between me and thee. And Abram made answer, and said to her, Behold, thy handmaid is thy own hand. Use her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai afflicted her, she ran away. And the angel of the Lord having found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, which is in the way to Sur in the desert, he said to her, Agar, handmaid of Sarai, whence comest thou? And she answered, I flee from the face of Sarai, my mistress. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Return to thy mistress, and humble thyself under her hand. And again he said, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, and it shall not be numbered for multitude. And again, Behold, said he, thou art with child, and thou shalt bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Israel, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand will be against all men, and all men's hands against him. And he shall pitch his tents over against all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spoke unto her, Thou, the God who hast seen me. For she said, Verily here I have seen the hinder parts of him that seeth me. Therefore she called that well the well of him that liveth and seeth me. The same is between Kadesh and Barad. And Agar brought forth a son to Abram, who called his name Israel. Abram was 86 old when Agar brought him forth Ishmael. Chapter 17. The Covenant of Circumcision. And after he began to be 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him, and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me, and be perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. Abram fell flat on his face, and God said to him, I am, and my covenant is with thee. And thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name be called any more Abram, but thou shalt be called Abraham, because I have made thee a father of many nations. And I will make thee increase exceedingly, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and between thy seed after thee, in their generations, by a perpetual covenant, to be a God to thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give to thee, and to thy seed, the land of thy sojournment, all the land of Canaan, for perpetual possession, and I will be their God. Again God said to Abraham, And thou therefore shalt keep my covenant, and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which you shall observe between me and you, thy seed after thee. All the male kind you shall be circumcised, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, that it may be for a sign of the covenant between me and you. An infant of 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house, as well as the bought servant, shall be circumcised, and whosoever is not of your stock. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for a perpetual covenant. The male whose flesh of his foreskin shall not be circumcised, that soul shall be destroyed out of his people, because he hath broken my covenant. God said also to Abraham, Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call Sarai, but Sarah, and I will bless her, and of her I will give thee a son, whom I will bless, and he shall become nations, and kings of people shall spring from him. Abraham fell on his face and laughed, saying in his heart, Shall a son, thinkest thou, be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bring forth? And he said to God, Oh, that Ishmael may live before thee. And God said to Abram, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for a perpetual covenant, and with his seed after him. As for Ismael, I have also heard thee. Behold, I will bless him, and increase, and multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 chiefs, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bring forth to thee as at this time in the next year. And when he had left off speaking with him, God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ismael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all whom he had bought, every male among the men of his house, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskin forthwith, the very same day, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 99 years old when he circumcised the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was full 13 years old at the time of his circumcision. The selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of his house as well, they that were born in his house, as the bought servants and strangers were circumcised with him. Chapter 18. Angels are entertained by Abram. They foretell the birth of Isaac. Abram's prayer for the men of Sodom. And the Lord appeared to him in the vale of Mamre, as he was sitting at the door of his tent, in the very heat of the day. And when he had lifted up his eyes, there appeared to him 3 men standing near him. And as soon as he saw them, he ran to meet them from the door of his tent, and adored down to the ground. And he said, Lord, if I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away from thy servant. But I will fetch a little water, and wash ye your feet, and rest ye under the tree. And I will set a morsel of bread, and strengthen ye your heart. Afterwards you shall pass on, for therefore are you come aside to your servant. And they said, Do as thou hast spoken. Abraham made haste into the tent to Sarah, and said to her, Make haste, temper together 3 measures of flour, and make cakes upon the hearth. And he himself ran into the herd, and took from thence a calf very tender and very good, and gave it to a young man, who made haste and boiled it. He took also butter and milk, and the calf which he had boiled, and set before them. But he stood by them under the tree. And when they had eaten, they said to him, Where is Sarah thy wife? He answered, Lo, she is in the tent. And he said to him, I will return and come to thee at this time, life accompanying. And Sarah thy wife shall have a son. Which when Sarah heard, she laughed behind the door of the tent. Now they were both old and far advanced in years, and it had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. And she laughed secretly, saying, After I am grown old, and my Lord is an old man, shall I give myself to pleasure? And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I, who am an old woman, bear a child indeed? Is there anything hard to God? According to appointment, I will return to thee at this same time, life accompanying, and Sarah shall have a son. Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. But the Lord said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. And when the men rose up from thence, they turned their eyes toward Sodom, and Abraham walked with them, bringing them on the way. And the Lord said, Can I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Seeing he shall become a great and mighty nation, and in him all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. For I know that he will command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord, and to do judgment and justice, that for Abraham's sake the Lord may bring to effect all the things he has spoken unto him. And the Lord said, The cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is multiplied, and their sin is become exceedingly grievous. I will go down and see whether they have done according to the cry that is come to me, or whether it be not so, that I may know. And they turned themselves from thence, and went their way to Sodom. But Abraham as yet stood before the Lord. And drawing nigh, he said, Wilt thou destroy the just with the wicked? If there be 50 just men in the city, shall they perish withal? And wilt thou not spare that place for the sake of 50, just if they be there within, if they be therein? Far be it from thee to do this thing, and to slay the just with the wicked, and for the just to be in like case as with the wicked. It is not beseeching thee, it is not beseeming thee, thou who judgest all the earth, will not make this judgment. And the Lord said to him, If I find in Sodom 50 just within the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, Seeing I have once begun, I will speak to my Lord, whereas I am dust and ashes. What if there be 5 less than 50 just persons? Wilt thou for 45, for 45 destroy the whole city? He said, I will not destroy it, if I find 45. And again he said to him, But if 40 be found there, what wilt thou do? He said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 40. Lord, saith he, be not angry, I beseech thee, if I speak. What if 30 shall be found there? He answered, I will not do it, if I find 30 there. Seeing, saith he, I have once begun, I will speak to my Lord. What if 20 be found there? He said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. I beseech thee, said he, be not angry, Lord, if I speak yet. It looks like a page has been ripped out. So I want to read that page from an online version of the same Dewey Rams edition. Let's see, chapters. Well, it looks like several pages have been ripped out. 22. No, that's just 23, 24, 25. So just 23 and 24 missing. So let me pull those up. We're at chapter 18, verse 31. Seeing, saith he, I have once begun, I will speak to my Lord. What if 20 be found there? He said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. I beseech thee, saith he, be not angry, Lord, if I speak yet once more. What if 10 shall be found there? And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. And the Lord departed, after he had left speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. This concludes our reading for the day. Let's go back and look at the subtext. There's one here for chapter 16, verse 3. To wife. Plurality of wives, though contrary to the primitive institution of marriage, was by divine dispensation allowed to the patriarchs, which allowance seems to have continued during the time of the law of Moses. But Christ our Lord reduced marriage to its primitive institution. Chapter 17, verse 5. Abram in the Hebrew signifies a high father, but Abraham the father of the multitude. Sarai signifies my lady, but Sarah absolutely lady. Chapter 18, verse 21. I will go down. The Lord here accommodates his discourse to the way of speaking and acting amongst men, for he knoweth all things, and needeth not to go anywhere for information. Note here that 2 of the 3 angels went away immediately for Sodom, whilst the third, who represented the Lord, remained with Abraham. This concludes our reading for today. Thank you for joining me.